NASCAR is well known for being one of the fastest racing series in the world, and even then, Formula 1 and IndyCar outpace the speed of NASCAR dramatically. But if F1 and IndyCar are so fast, then really, why is NASCAR getting slower? Time for some context. To accurately measure the speed of NASCAR race cars and how they've changed over time, we looked at the pole speed for a Charlotte Motor Speedway race each year. Why Charlotte? Well, it's a neutral 1.5-mile racetrack that is incredibly similar to Kansas, Texas, and many others on the schedule. Neutral enough for this video anyway. And although this measurement isn't exact, it's definitely enough to give us a rough estimate. Almost all of the differences in speed are a direct result of NASCAR making changes to the aero packages or horsepower. My spreadsheet skills aren't perfect, so this graph might look like complete trap. But what we can gather from this graph is that NASCAR started out slow, real slow. Every year after 1981, the cars went steadily faster and faster, reaching its peak of 195.6 miles per hour in 2013. But it is worth mentioning that these stock cars certainly had the ability to go even faster in NASCAR's early age if they handled as well as they do now.
The pace is 209.82 miles an hour. Much faster, I think, than anybody anticipated.
So if NASCAR is getting faster every year, why did I say NASCAR is getting slower? Well, that part focuses primarily on 2015 and onward. But first, we should backtrack a bit. The first hint of making NASCAR race cars slower was in 1987, where the pole speed for the Winston 500 was 212.8 miles per hour, set by Bill Elliott. But NASCAR stepped in and said that that was just too fast after a high-speed crash Bobby Allison had with the Talladega catch fence during the race. And once they put restrictor plates on the cars at Talladega and Daytona in 1988, the sport would certainly never see speeds that high again. Or would they? At Michigan International Speedway of 2014, Cup cars could reach top speeds of about 214 miles per hour in the race.
209, 210, 211. 213, 214 into turn one.
You might be surprised to find out that Jeff Gordon's pole lap of 2014's Michigan Fall race had the 7th fastest pole speed, not in the year of 2014, not at Michigan International Speedway, but ever. It was the 7th fastest pole speed that was ever run in NASCAR. And these cars are created with aerodynamics in mind. Unlike in the 1990s, these cars were sealed to the ground. Good luck fitting anything underneath it. In theory, the closer the car is to the ground, the faster it goes. Which is why it's not so surprising to see so many sparks in night races.
To the outside of Junior, wow, look at those sparks.
Son, he's
We knew
bottoming
there-
out.
With in-race speeds being so high during 2014, it meant that the cars were a bit harder to handle. When someone was in front of you, it was harder to slow down and avoid them. Look at how many drivers stack up into this wreck from lap 25 in the Michigan Fall race. But the upwards trend of NASCAR stock cars becoming faster and faster slowly came to a halt. NASCAR had considered slowing things down for 2015. The thought was that this would allow Cup Series engines to last longer, saving race teams money. But by doing this, they would need to take away horsepower. And less horsepower means that the cars should be easier to drive. And for anyone who doesn't know what I mean when I mention horsepower, essentially less horsepower equals a less powerful engine. Maybe NASCAR was getting too fast for its own good, and NASCAR wanted to head back down to 750 horsepower like they had in the late 2000s. And I think most NASCAR fans would agree that the racing in the late 2000s wasn't the best, but it wasn't too terrible either. Then in 2019, NASCAR introduced another aero package that added a ton of downforce to each car, increasing the spoiler size from 2.375 inches tall in 2018 all the way up to 8 in 2019. A combination of downforce and running less horsepower at bigger tracks led to racing that fans haven't particularly been fond of. I just stumbled on this amazing Reddit thread of when NASCAR EVP Steve O'Donnell was interviewed about the racing in 2019 and said, "We like what we're seeing." But if you don't believe me when I say NASCAR fans disagree, let's go see what the Redditors had to say. I'm just here for the comments. Let's rephrase, Steve. You like what you're seeing. Does Steve understand what racing is and what it's supposed to be? Clearly not. No. He needs to be specific. I liked what we saw at Texas. I was at that race and really enjoyed it. I was also at the Auto Club race. I really hated seeing that after the previous 2 races. We need to look into track-specific packages. I know it's costly, but dang, there won't be any fans if you think all of this is great entertainment. They're so delusional. It's quite sad, honestly. That's funny. I don't like watching slow cars glued to the surface. Glad you like it, because a lot of us don't. You really have to do some digging to find a positive post in the YouTube comments on this video. Telling, isn't it? So clearly this racing style is not the style that fans want to watch. I think I get where they're coming from, because if you're not a NASCAR fan and you glance at the television, it does appear to be entertaining, but I think hardcore NASCAR fans don't see it as a good racing product as a whole. Year after year of packages getting tweaked, But obviously, the fans still aren't satisfied. So with all these changes in recent years, NASCAR's clearly on the trend of becoming much slower. But why? One thing we can point to is that NASCAR simply wants less engines blown in their sport. Restricting engines to 550 horsepower makes it pretty hard, but not impossible for the car to blow up. For any big NASCAR fans watching this video, I don't know about you, but I certainly feel like there's been less engine failures in NASCAR in recent years. That being said, they're not eliminated completely. So is another horsepower reduction on the horizon anytime soon? Well, probably not. NASCAR is in the testing stage for its next-gen car that will run in 2022. They're currently exploring how a 670 horsepower package races at 1.5-mile racetracks. And what you're currently seeing is a test race with all of these elements. If you ask me, I certainly hope they go for this one. In the comment section of this practice that was uploaded by NASCAR, so many fans seem excited for the possibility of this style of racing becoming a reality in 2022. It makes me happy to see NASCAR fans agreeing on this and enjoying the test session as much as they are. But how did NASCAR drivers react to the new racing packages? Kyle Busch seemed to dislike it more than anyone else, dissing it in a handful of interviews from 2019.
First, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate the package here?
Stop asking me package questions. I'm done answering them. Next.
It's frustrating that you have fast cars and then you get stuck back in traffic and you can't do shit with it, you know? What are we supposed to do? You have a piece of damage, a little bit of damage that you have a tire up, you gotta fix it, you can't drive back through the field. That's stupid.
And if Kyle said this about the race cars in 2007,
still not a very big fan of these things. I can't stand to drive them, they suck.
I can only imagine what he really thinks of the racing from 2019 to 2021. And it's worth mentioning this guy literally won the championship in 2019. Carl Edwards shockingly left NASCAR in 2016, and while we don't exactly know the very reason that led to this decision, we gained some insight when he appeared on NASCAR Race Hub earlier in 2021.
And so if I were going to do something, it would probably be on a road course, or if NASCAR by chance change the package to where there was no downforce and about 1,000 horsepower, I could probably get pretty interested in that too.
With everything he said in this interview, I wonder if we can see him appear for one race in the 2022 season. Maybe he can find a seat to race in one of the road course races this year, or even Bristol Dirt. With his expressed interest, I'm sure the brand new next-gen car could also draw him in even more. So if some NASCAR drivers have expressed their dislike for lowering horsepower in stock cars, it only makes sense for NASCAR to raise it little by little. Maybe NASCAR speeds are on the trend back upwards. This is Kyle Busch getting loose in his next-gen test from December of 2021. But perhaps the most confusing part of this whole thing is that according to a Twitter poll run by Jeff Gluck, 85% of users thought that the 2021 season was a good one, despite racing speeds being much slower than they used to be. I need your input in the comments. Why do you think this is? If most NASCAR fans dislike the high downforce and low horsepower racing, then what made the 2021 season so enjoyable? Maybe fans can just overlook the 1.5-mile racetracks that NASCAR primarily uses this package at.